श्रीगुरून् वैष्णवांश्च श्रीरूपं साग्रजातं सहगणरघुनाथान्वितं तं सजीवं साद्वैतं सावधूतं परिजनसहितं श्रीकृष्णचैतन्यदेवं श्रीराधाकृष्णपादान् सहगणललिता श्रीविशाखान्वितांश्च। हे कृष्णा करुणा सिंधो दीनबंधो जगत्पते गोपेश गोपिका कांता राधा कांता नमोस्तुते। तप्त कांचन गौरांगी राधे वृंदावनेश्वरी वृषभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये। नमो महावदान्याय कृष्ण प्रेम प्रदायिने कृष्णाय कृष्ण चैतन्य नामिने गौरत्विषे नमः। पंचतत्वात्मकं कृष्णं भक्तरूपस्वरूपकं भक्तावतारं भक्ताख्यं नमामि भक्तशक्तिकं। श्रीकृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासदि गौर भक्तवृंद। हरे कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्ण हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे। नारायणं नमस्कृत्य नरं चैव नरोत्तमं देवीं सरस्वतीं व्यासं ततो जयमुदीरयेत्। Reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, 3rd canto, 5th chapter, verse number 43. So those of you who are new to this class, we are reading this book which is talking about some questions which were asked by one person named Vidura to a great sage Maitreya, and he had asked one very interesting question which we all face in our life. It is actually everybody's question, but we never ask it. That is the most amazing thing, that this is a question which should be asked by every human being, every thoughtful person, but hardly anyone thinks about this question. And the question was that Sukhaya karmani karoti loke natat sukham anyaduparamam. He says that everybody in this world works to achieve happiness, right? Anybody has any objection to that? So he says Sukhaya karmani karoti loke. Everybody works to get happiness. It does not matter whether they are rich, poor, Indian or Polish, male or female, makes no difference. But he says that people work for happiness, but they don't get it. And not only that they don't get happiness, they don't become free from the miseries. Nanyad uparamamba. So he says, why this happens? So this is a question which should be asked. We should all ask this question. But we never ask this. So this was the question which was asked by this person on our behalf. Because we don't ask it, so he was asking. That was his greatness. So with Maitreya, who is a very great sage, who was living in Rishikesh, in the forest, he started answering. And his answers we have been reading. It's a long answer he is giving. And while answering this question, he was speaking about the creation of the world. because there are two groups of people. There are people who believe that the world came into existence by itself and we evolved by the law given by Darwin's theory of evolution. And then there are other people who believe that God created it. So there are two groups of people, evolutionists and creationists. So Maitreya, he is a creationist. He says that God is the person who is behind this creation. And he is giving the process how it is created, because if we understand how the world was created, then we will understand why we don't get happiness. To answer the question, he has to go back to the very beginning, because he wants to find out the root cause of this problem. So for that reason, he is explaining creation. Otherwise, people wonder why they talk about creation here. This is not a book of science. It is a book of philosophy and religion. So why suddenly he is talking about this? So he is explaining it because the question was raised, why we don't get happiness although we all want it and we work for it. Because sometimes we want things, we don't work for it. Isn't it? We only want. And now there is also a philosophy that if you desire, then things will happen. They say that this is the secret of life, that you just desire and then things start happening in the universe. Everything gets arranged according to your desires. So then they don't want to work. But usually when we desire something sincerely, we also work for it. But then if we don't get result, then naturally it is logical to analyze, why is that I wanted this, I worked for it, I didn't get it. So that was the question which was raised. And while explaining the creation, to answer this question, because the answer follows in 2-3 chapters, he was saying that Lord he created, and how he created that there is this material world comes from a source which is called Prakriti, or the unmanifest matter, primordial matter. And this matter is disturbed by Lord for creating by using his time energy. So he puts the souls and time onto this Prakriti. It's like you have a seed, and if the seed is lying in a packet, then it will remain lying there for ages, nothing will happen. But if you want that the seed becomes a tree, then you take out the seed, you put it in the ground, and there is enough water and some warmth is there, then the seed starts fructifying. So the time is working on it, takes some time to happen, and also your effort is needed. So in the same way, the material world exists in the form of a seed, and that is called Prakriti. Like the experiment they were doing in Switzerland about a month ago, trying to create the situation just the way universe was created by Big Bang. So it is a very small thing, and then it becomes big. From seed it becomes a tree. But it does not happen by itself. This is where the science is missing the point. It happens by the involvement of God, who is existing before the creation. And how he creates is that he has energy, and the most important energy which he has is the Kala, the time. By the influence of time, he disturbs the equilibrium of Prakriti, and when equilibrium is disturbed, then Prakriti starts sprouting like a seed sprouts. And then we have the various elements like cosmic intelligence, cosmic ego, cosmic mind, So first the cosmic elements are produced, and we read up to that when these cosmic elements were produced, and then these elements also have their presiding deity. That is another thing we have been reading, that everything has a deity behind it. The sun, planet, the earth also has a deity behind it. It's not just a dead matter, but there is also a personality behind it. So when these elements were created, then they were not able to mix together and create the universe. So for that reason they began praying to the Lord. And we are reading those prayers, the prayers of these elements. So we should understand that even the original elements are not powerful enough to do anything by themselves. And our body is made from a very small fraction of these elements. So our body also cannot function without the energy of God. And therefore we should not become very proud thinking that we are a great person and we can do wonderful things. And why we fail always in our goal to achieve happiness, only to teach this to us. Why is this system created like this, that we always fail in our goal to achieve happiness? So that one day we wake up and start thinking that there must be somebody else besides me who is responsible for me to have this happiness. Because if I was the only person responsible for this, then I can get it. But this shows that I am not the only person responsible. There are certain other factors which are involved, and those factors are not within my control. This is the idea behind this setup. God has actually set it up like that. So then we will become more conscious. Now we are only conscious of ourselves. Sometimes, mostly we are not conscious of ourselves also. But to speak of being God conscious. So the idea is to become God conscious, and unless we will become God conscious, we will always fail. This is guaranteed. And the reason is that we cannot be successful without considering God, because He is one of the most important factor involved in achieving anything. So this is what the elements were praying, and I've been speaking that there are two processes to realize God. One is the process of being independent, and other is the process of surrender. So process of surrender is called the path of love or path of devotion or bhakti yoga. And this is what they have been speaking about. So in the last few verses they said that a person who has faith in God, then he listens about God. And when he listens about God, then the heart becomes clean. Like people practice yoga to clean the heart. There is also the path of devotion to clean the heart, bhakti yoga. And when heart is clean, then one gets realization. Because with unclean heart, we don't get realization. It's like if we have glasses and there is dust on the glasses, then we cannot see very clearly. Although our eyes are okay, but if we have glasses, and even if our eyes are normal, we have normal vision, and we have just plain glasses or sunglasses, and they are full of dust, then I cannot see. So similarly, our heart has gathered a lot of dust on it, and the soul is sitting behind it, so he cannot see beyond the heart. He is only seeing all the things which are inside the heart, and those are all material desires. So he cannot see, therefore we have to clean it. And that cleansing process is called sadhana bhakti, or path of devotion. So this is what they have been describing, that by engaging in that, samrijyamane hridaya vadhaya. And when heart is samrijya, marjan means sweeping, cleaning. Then jnanena vairagya balena dhira vrajema tattva saroj pita. Then one gets knowledge, one gets realization, wisdom, one understands the reality. And then one becomes free from fear. We all have some sort of fear always at the back of our mind, sometimes at the front of our mind also, and sometimes to the sides also. Some people are just absorbed in fear all the time. They are very paranoid. So if you go to airport, you can see the fear there. Right? There is so much fear that even they make you full of fear. So you can become free from fear by surrendering to God. That is the only kimia, solution. Otherwise, there is no other solution. But most people do not think of God. We are thinking of so many other things and we don't think of God. All the God is everywhere. God is the closest person. He is sitting inside our heart. Krishna says, Sarvasya Chaham Hriday Sannivishto. In Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says that I am sitting in everybody's heart. He says Sannivishta. He says I am sitting there comfortably. But we never see him. And he says that he is the friend, Saranam Surit. That he says I am the friend of everybody. Like you said, Bhujam friend. Friend who is very close to your heart. So nobody is closer than God. You may have your close friends, close relatives, family members, but they are not as close to you as God is. Because God never leaves you. Wherever you go, He is coming with you. Other family members are not coming with you all the time. And in fact, you may not like it. Because sometimes you want to be away from your family. But God says that He never leaves you. He is such a friend. But we never look towards Him. This is very amazing. There was once one king. In India there used to be kings before. And they all used to have elephants. So like these days, the prime ministers or presidents, they go out in a nice car. The kings used to go on elephants. They used to have nice elephants in India, decorated. They will sit on top of that and they will go in the city taking a ride, pleasure ride in the evening. So one day the king was going and he saw far away one man was sitting under a tree. And he looked very happy. Although there was nothing with him, but he looked like he was completely in peace. So the king thought, this guy has nothing. I have everything. I am always in tension, anxiety, and he is looking so happy. There must be some secret. So if you want to be happy, you should live with happy people. If you want to be miserable, live with miserable people. If you want to be healthy, live with healthy people. If you want to fall sick, live with sick people. So the king thought that I should invite him to come and live with me in my palace. So by seeing him, I will also get some virus of happiness. Because kings have too many anxieties. So he sent his servant that you go and call this man and tell him that the king is calling him and he will take him to the palace. So the man went, the servant, and usually if somebody calls, if a king is calling you, you'll be very happy to go and be with him. People are dying to be with the king, even to meet with him, and he is inviting him to live with him in the palace. So the servant went and told him that king is calling you. So the man said, why is he calling? I have not committed any crime. So I'm sitting here peacefully, I have not disturbed anybody. Why is he calling me? He says, no, not that he wants to punish you, because people are also scared of king. So there is a saying by one great politician that you should not put trust in kings, because you don't know when their mind can change and they can punish you, they can hang you, they can do anything because they have the power. Vishwaso naiv kartavya strishu rajkulesu cha. So he says, I know I'm not interested. So he says, no, he wants you to come and live with him in the palace. So and the servant was thinking that how fortunate is this person. Out of blue, the king is calling him. So the man refused. He said, no, I'm not interested in going and living in the palace. I'm happy here. So the servant was very surprised. He says, are you okay? Something wrong with your intelligence? The king is calling you and you are refusing? Yeah, he says, I'm completely okay, more than you. And I have no interest. So he says again, think again, because it is king who is calling you. So he says, I don't need to think, I know it very well that I don't want to go. So the servant was of course really taken aback, and he came back and reported to the king. So the king was also surprised, because such a request was never refused by anybody in the past. So the king then became more curious that this man is really something. So he got down from the elephant and he said, I will go myself and talk to him, because this is very strange. First of all, the king was so fascinated by him, and now when he's calling, he's not coming, so he's more fascinated. Because when you want something and you don't get it, then that thing, its value increases in your eyes. If you get it just like that, then it has no value. So the king went and he says that, why don't you come and live with me? So the man said, why shall I come and live with you? I'm happy here. So no, I will give you all facilities. He said, but who cares for your facility? So the king said, you are a very strange person. So he said, yes, strange I am. So king said, I will give you anything you want. So this man said, okay, if you are so much insisting and you are king, I must honor your word. But I have few conditions. I can come with you if you fulfill my condition. So this was another surprise for the king, that this guy on the street, he is putting a condition to the king. Usually the kings, they put the condition. So but king now was very intrigued by this man. So he said, okay, I will fulfill whatever you say. He says, okay, think again, because my conditions are also very strange. So he says, okay, let me hear at least your condition. So he says, look, my first condition is that I will eat, you will not eat. So king was very surprised. This is not it. And he says that I will sleep, but you will not sleep. And third condition is that you will never leave me. So the king says, it's impossible for me to do this, I will starve to death. I also need to sleep and I cannot be with you all the time. I have so many things to do. So, but king said, but why you want this condition? I says, what will you gain by this, that you eat and I don't eat? What is your advantage? If I can also eat, what do you lose? because king knew that there must be some secret why he is putting. So he says the reason is that why shall I leave him who is with me, who is already doing this, and come with you who doesn't want to do. He says nobody gives up something for something lower. If I have a pot made of silver, then I will not give up my silver glass unless you give me something, say golden glass. But if you are giving me a mud glass and saying that you give up this silver glass, why shall I do that? So he says already God is there with me and he never leaves me. I eat, he is not demanding food from me. I sleep, he never sleeps. Now if I come to your palace, I will forget him because I will get engaged in your nonsense. So why shall I give up him for you unless you do that to me? At least you have to give me this much, if not more. So the thing is that God is always there with us and not putting any conditions, not demanding. Usually if you have friends, relatives, husband and wife, whom you think that you love them and you say, oh, you are my love, you are my heart, you are my this, all this language you know very well, but they all have conditions. They all expect something from you, they want something from you in return. But God does not want anything. He is not demanding anything from you. And yet He is always with you, under all circumstances. But we never look towards Him. So this is the next verse which is saying this. This is a very interesting verse. It says, Yat sanubandhe asti deha gehe mamaham ityudha duragrahanam punsam suduram vastopi puriyam bhajema tatte bhagavan padabjam. He says that because people are very much attached, why is that we don't give any attention to God? Because the characteristic of attention is that it can be given only to one thing at a time. We cannot give our attention to two things simultaneously. It is not possible. If you are sitting here in class and listening to me, then you cannot listen anything else. And if you are listening something else, because sometimes the talk is going on inside the mind, then you will not listen to me what I am saying. If your mind goes back to Poland, then you will forget what is coming out from my mouth. It will not enter into you. So he says that because people are very much attached to their body and their house. House means things in the house. So he says, Deha Gehe. You can come and sit here. Anyway, I think we can continue. So, the thing is that our attention is fixed on our body, first of all, which is very dear to us, and then things which are related to the body. There may be family people, there may be our possessions, or any of these things. So because of that, we are not able to give our attention to the person who is closest to us. can come here. No, you come here. Come. अरे बैठ जाओ यार, क्या है? So therefore it says that Punsam Suduram Vastopi Puriyam, that this body is like a city, and although he is situated inside the city, Krishna, he is also called Purusha because he is sitting. This body is called a Puri, a city, and he is situated in it. But being closest to us, he is very far. It says Suduram Vastopi Puriyam. Although he is living in this very body, closer than anything else, yet he is very far away from us, because the closeness and distance is not based on something physical, but it is based on our awareness, on our consciousness. And since our awareness, our consciousness, our attention is fixed only some things which are related to body or our own body, then we cannot give this attention to him, because attention can be only either internal or external. So somehow or other our senses are designed like this. Paranchi khani vyatrinit swayambhu parang pashyati namtaratman kaschidhira atmanam akshat. So our senses are designed like that, they are going only externally and they cannot see inside. And because our attention is with our senses, wherever my sense goes, then my mind is with one of the senses all the time. And if it is not with the senses, then it is in his own world. These are the two vrittis of the mind. Either mind is with the sense, or it is just cuddling what has been experienced in the past. Like a cow, you have seen cows, they eat, then afterwards they sit down quietly, they bring out the food from their stomach and then they are chewing it. So we are also like that, like a cow. The senses are also called cows in Sanskrit. Our eyes, ears, mouth, etc. In Sanskrit they are also called cow, go. And we are eating, and then when we are not taking perceptions through our senses, then we sit down and we are ruminating what we have experienced, we are daydreaming. And therefore we have no time to think of God. So that's why they are saying that Yatsa anubandhe, anubandha means the bondage. This is the bondage. The soul is bound in this world only because of the attachment to body and things which are related to the physical body. And if we can give up this attachment, then we will see God right inside our heart, because He is there all the time, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days in a year. He never leaves. And unconditionally He is there, not demanding anything. He is not even saying that give me a cup of tea. Some guest comes to your house, after some time he expects at least some chai from you. But God is not. He is also sitting in the house or the city, as they say, Puriyam Vastopi Sudura. But He is not asking anything. So Sri Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says that Tadapi Durjivair Bhakti Durlabha Ityahu Yaditi. He says that for most people, unfortunate people, this bhakti which we have been talking about is very rare to achieve. Very, very rare. And what is the reason for this? Then the reason he is explained, that although he is in the body, our own physical body, but we don't look towards him. And the reason? Because we are so much absorbed. And if you are absorbed in materialistic things, you forget God. But he gives a different meaning to this word Puri. Puri means city. He says Puriyam Mathura Dwarkadavu Prakata Prakat Prakasa Bhyam Sada Vastopi Dehe Antaryami Rupen. Because the word Puri can mean physical body, it can also mean city. So he says that although Krishna is living here in Vrindavan, we are in Vrindavan, He's living here eternally, but we don't see him because we don't want to see him actually. So 5,000 years ago he was visible to everybody, and now he is not visible to everybody, but he can still become visible if we give our attention to him. But since we are not giving our attention, as they say, that sanubandhe asti dehage, that this asati means something which is not ultimately real. Our physical body is not the absolute reality, because physical body is made of molecules which are made of atoms, and atoms are made of protons, neutrons, electrons and some other trons, and this is full of space. Actually it's empty space. If you compress all the atoms of this physical body, they can be kept on the tip of a pin, needle. So it's a big illusion that its body looks like this. It's an empty space. So that's why it says it is asati. It is not sat, it is not absolute reality. It exists, but it is not. Asati means it is not the way it appears to us. With our physical eyes it is looking like this, but if we had the eyes of electronic microscope, then we will only see space. We will be spaced out completely. So this is the reason that we are not able to see Krishna in this body. Then in the next verse he gives more reason. He says, Tan vaihi asad vrittibhir akshibhir yai parahritantar mansa paresha atho na pashyanti urugaya nunam yete padanyasa vilasa lakshmya. So they are praying that, O Lord, because their mind is parahrita, it's been like stolen completely, captivated by these external asadvrittibhir akshibhir. Akshi means the senses. Our senses and the sense objects, they have completely stolen away the mind. And our mind never has any time. Athona pashyanti urugaya nunam. Therefore we do not see the Lord who is so glorious, urugaya. Yete padanyasa vilasa lakshmi. So they cannot see Lord and his pastimes and his beauty. So what was said in the previous verse is further explained in this verse. And because of our mind being always running after the sense objects, and the science and technology has made this problem more intense, because all technology has done is that it has given us so many things that now we have no time for them. We don't have free time, because wherever you go you have some gadget. You have mobile, you have TV, you have camera, you have iPod, right? So absolutely we have become so habituated now that if somebody is left free not to do, he is said that you just sit down quietly and he is not given any entertainment, then what happens? That he will become bored and he will become crazy. So it is very interesting that this word entertainment in French language is called distraction. I was sitting in Paris in the summer waiting for my flight, and then they were showing on this screen, they give the flight number, what time it will leave, who is the captain, and then they were saying in English and in French, because this is Paris, so they were all twice. First it will come in English and then it will come in. So entertainment on board, and the French was distraction on board. So it was very interesting to see that what we call entertainment is actually a distraction. Because your mind is distracted. And this is what he is saying here. Para hrita antar manasa. That our mind is completely distracted. And if our mind is distracted, then how can it be fixed on Krishna or God who is right there? So therefore he says, Pashyanti urugaya nunam. That they Pashyanti, now they don't see. So it's like you are standing and facing towards west, and just behind you God is standing. And you never see him because you never turn around to the east. So if you just look to the west and God is standing behind you, then you will never see him. So this is the meaning of Parahrita Antaramasa. So there is a very interesting commentary on this verse by Jiva Goswami. I will read that. Tasmat Yesu Swapunsham Kripa Syat Tesam Eva Tatsmaran Vishya Syat. So he says that really speaking, only those people who can get the grace of the Lord or his devotees, only they can come to this awareness of God. Otherwise we have no chance. In this thought itself will not come to us that we have to stop this absorption in sense pleasures and think of God. It will never come. So Matirna Krishna Parta Svatova Mitha Vipadyate Griha Vratanam. Our mind will never be fixed on God by our endeavors or by some other action. Why? Because Griha Vratanam, we are absorbed in our house, family, children, job, all these things. But it is only by the grace of a devotee that one's mind can be turned. Says Sacha Kripa na sarvatra syatityahu. Says, and that grace is not available to everybody, everywhere. Because if it has to come from devotees of God, then they are not everywhere. If you go to supermarket and think you are going to get grace of God there, it's not going to happen. Tadevam yadatra nopulabhyate satsangya tatrapi adhunikah praktano va parampariko va numeya. So the only possibility of becoming God conscious is by the association, by the grace of a devotee of God. And he says that if you see somebody and this person is God conscious and you know that he never got any association of a devotee, he says then you must know that he must have got it in previous life. Otherwise it is not possible. That is the only way to get it. Tatra krita Sri Naradadi Darsanaderapi Devatade Sri Nalakuvaradi Vat Tadrishattu Prapti Na Shruyate Iti Ata Evam Vivechani. Now he brings out one very interesting question. This is a philosophical question. It says that there are instances that some people they meet great devotees and still they don't become God conscious. So why it happens? Some people meet great devotees, they become God conscious. There are others, they also meet and they don't become God conscious. Like he gives the example that Narada, he is a great devotee of Krishna. He travels all over. He also goes to heaven and these gods, demigods, they all see him. But everybody does not become surrendered to God. So why is that? What is the reason behind it? In other words, the devotee's grace does not happen just naturally to everybody. But some people seem to get the grace and others don't get it. Or some people seem to become influenced by the association of a devotee and others don't get influenced. So there must be some reason behind it. So he brings this, says Evam Vivechaniyam, it says we must consider the following to understand this. And this is a very important feature of Bhakti Marg, or this path of devotion, and that is called aparad. So aparad means offense. Aparad is that which takes one away from Radha. Radha means the greatest devotee, and apa means away, and Radha means worship. So that which takes us away from God, that is called aparad, or offense. There are certain activities which are displeasing to God, because God is a person, He is a living being, He is not a stone piece. So there are certain things which He does not like, and if we do that, then He is displeased. And the devotees are also like that, because devotees have the same mood as God. So if we do things which are displeasing to God, then devotees are also displeased. Then the grace does not work. So it is like you want to burn a wood, but if the wood is dry, not dry, it is wet, then there will be a lot of smoke, but it will not catch fire. So similarly, if we have committed offense towards devotees, or towards God, or towards holy name, or towards God's abode, improper behavior basically, like if you go and meet somebody in his or her house, then that person whom you are visiting expects some behavior from you. But if you behave in an improper manner, you go and kick away her dining table, then she will be very displeased, and she would not like to see you next time. So in the same way, there are certain activities which has to be avoided. So if they are not avoided, then God may be next to you, and you may meet devotees and you may hear from them. It will not have influence on you. Just like you try to make fire with wet wood, green wood. So you will only see a lot of smoke and your eyes will water, but no fire. So he says, यदि अपराध सद्भावो वर्तते पुरुषे तदा तद्दोषेण सत्सु निरादराणां साधारण पुण्यादि दृष्टिनां च तद्दोष शांति अर्थम सत्संगस्य भगवत सामुख्यस्य कारणत्वेन तत्कृपा सहायम अपेक्षते निरपराधत्वे सति तत्सत्संगेनैव. Says that if you meet a devotee and you don't have proper understanding about him, and you think that this devotee is also an ordinary person, or he is little more pious than me, then his association will not be effective if you are offensive in the past. If you are a clean person, means like a dry wood, then even if you meet a devotee, then his association, his presence will influence you without a doubt. So we know now that when we meet any person, then their aura has an influence on us. This is scientifically proven fact. That whenever you go and be in the company of another person, then their mood, their temperament, their aura has an influence on you. So something like that also happens if you meet some divine people, saintly people, then their presence will have an influence on you. But if my own aura is very negative, then I may not have the good influence of the others association. If my aura is negative and I meet another negative person with negative aura, then immediately you will match. Like we said, to be on the same wavelength. So similarly he says that if a person has committed offense and has an offensive mentality, then even if he meets a saintly person, and naturally because of this offense he will not recognize this saintly person as really saintly, then the association will not be very effective unless God gives special mercy to this person. Then it is possible. Otherwise the mere association will not work. So he says satsangasya bhagavad samukyasya karanatvena tat kripa sahayam apekshate. So then usually what should happen, that if you meet a real devotee of God, then by his association itself you should become godly. Your mind should become influenced, because that is the power of a saintly person. But if it is not happening, then it is because I am too much covered by the offenses. So I have become immune to mercy. Like sometimes people take some injections for immunity against certain disease. So these offenses are something which make us immune to the grace of a devotee. That you don't get the grace. It's not effective. Says nirapradhatve sati tat satsange naiva. But if we are free from offense, then just mere association will make us immediately God conscious. जात परमोत्तम दृष्टिनाम तु तेषु सतो अवधाना भावे अपि सत्संग मात्रम तत्कारणम. And if we have proper understanding about the devotee, that he is a very great divine person full of love for God, then even if that devotee is not thinking to bless you, you will become influenced. Just the presence of such a person will have influence on you. Atah sapradhena eva adhikritya uktam taniti. So this verse, he says, is describing those people who have committed offense. And he says because of that only their mind is always running for sense objects and it never turns towards God. All the God is so close. So according to him, the real reason is not just that mind is absorbed in sense pleasures, but there is a further cause behind it, that why mind is always absorbed. It says because the person has done something unfavorable to God in the past, either in this life or in previous life, somewhere in our existence we have done that, and therefore our mind does not turn towards God. ते तव पाद न्यास विलास लक्ष्म्या संबंधिनो यो भक्ता इत्यर्थ. And therefore such people, if when they are too much offensive, they will not even like to associate with holy people. They will feel bored if they have to meet some holy people. They will think, what is this? I am wasting my time here. I should go to a bar or a club or watch TV or do something else. Why I am sitting here? So that means that there is too much covering. ते तान नूनम प्रायो न पश्यन्ति न कृपा दृष्टि विषय कुर्वन्ति इत्यर्थ. And then of course the devotees also do not give their grace to such people, because if they are not interested, then why bother them? So such people will not recognize the devotees, and then devotees also keep aloof from them. कान असद वृत्ति भी सापराध चेष्टै रक्षिभिर इंद्रियै पराहृत अंतर्मंश दूरीकृत अंतर्मुख चित्त वृत्तयो बहिर्मुखा इति एवं व्याख्यानम अपि अत्र अनुसंधेय. So he says, who are these people? He says these people are those whose mind and the senses, etc., because of the offense, they are only bahirmukha, they are only going externally and does not become focused within themselves. It's very difficult for them, in fact impossible, to fix their mind internally. Even if they try, then it will run only externally. Atra sadharana asadvrittitvam na grihiyate. So he says here, this engagement of the senses in material pleasures is not just an ordinary material pleasure, but it is because of the offense that has to be accepted. Sarvasya tatkripaya prak tatha bhutatvat. Says otherwise God's grace is available everywhere, but it cannot catch it. It's like if there is a radio station or TV station and it is relaying a program. So the waves are going all around. The whole atmosphere is filled with these waves. Now you have to tune to that particular frequency to catch the waves. Then you can hear the program from the radio or watch the program from the TV station on your TV. So in the same way, God's grace is available everywhere. But because we are not able to tune our mind to those particular waves, because we are tuning ourselves to other things, so then we don't see, we don't hear God, we don't see Him. So if we want to see Him, then we have to bring our tuning to the tuning of God's grace. So therefore he says, Sarvasya tat kripaya prak tatha bhutatvat. And this tuning is not possible for us if we commit offense. Then we even lose that facility to tune. It's not possible. Janasya krishnad vimukhasya daivat ityadik vishayam syatiti. So he says, then he quotes this verse that people whose face is turned away from Krishna because of their misfortune, then they cannot see. Tasmad anaparad sadvrittau tesam kripa pravartate eva. So if somebody is free from offense, then the grace of the devotee comes to them naturally without any obstruction. Kathanchid aparadha bhavena tada pravrittau api sangamatra naiva tesam sammati syat. And even if they are not giving their grace, but person is free from offense, then simply associating with them physically, the grace will come. Yatrutu saparadepi swartaya kripam kurvanti tassevetan mati syat nanyasya nalkubaradivat sadhana devtavach. But there is also one other instance. He says that there are people who are offensive, but still they can get the grace if the devotee or God wants to give the grace, not considering at all whether the other person is qualified or not qualified. It's like you have a TV program, you are watching one TV program and suddenly you lose the channel on which you are hooked on to and you start getting another channel. You are not trying, it happens sometimes. So that is not that you wanted it, just came. So like that the grace can also come if Lord wants or a devotee wants, irrespective of what is our qualification. So then he gives an example, the story which will come in the 10th canto of Sri Narada's grace on Nalkubar, these two brothers who were very proud of their wealth because they were son of one of the very rich person, Kubera. And wealth also brings pride. So they were very disrespectful to Sri Narada. And yet he gave his mercy to them. So this is something which is exceptional. Does not follow the normal rule. So this is the end of his comment and I will stop here. Any question?
absorbed only one thing at one time. So either she is absorbed outside or inside.
Yes.
She told us. So then in questions, the absorption, the inner absorption, is also coming by grace or it has to be like practiced?
It also comes by grace, but you also try for it. After understanding, you try.
So means
It
that
happens.
eventually I want to think about God.
Hmm?
Then somebody thinks that
You also have to
decision,
desire,
yeah.
and you also then have to act according to desire. Desiring has to be there, strong desire, and then you also must act according to the desire. Otherwise, you are not sincere about it. Of course, if your desire is strong, you will definitely act accordingly because there is no other choice. But sometimes people only say, "I want this," but they are not sure of it. They are acting contrary. That's where a lot of problems come in the material world, why we are not successful in our goals, that we want something but we are acting contrary to that goal, either out of ignorance or for whatever reason. So we act in one way, we desire another way. So the desire is also working to bring you to your goal, and the action is also working, and they conflict, and then we are a failure. So our desires and actions must match, and this is an art, because mostly people are not doing that. Whether they are in spiritual life or material life, there is a mismatch between action and desire. And this happens due to improper understanding, ignorance, lack of knowledge, or lack of sincerity. Because one cannot be insincere or hypocrite on this path. It has to be straightforward. So sometimes knowingly we act in an improper manner. We know that it is improper, and this is not really which will take me to that goal which I want. But then we are also attached to something else. Mind is divided internally and externally. But here it cannot work. You have to give up one or the other. Both are not possible.
I have heard people saying that our actions also depends on the desire. So
Of course, our actions are based on desire. First you desire, then you act.
now the capacity to act based on our desire is solely rests upon ourselves, or any other factor influences that
Knowledge.
knowledge. Any place
Three
for
things have to be there. Actually, there should be four things. First, there should be proper knowledge. When knowledge is there, then there is desire. Because if you don't have proper knowledge, then there is no proper desire. So therefore, any field you want to be successful, you must have complete knowledge, or as much as you can get. You must have proper knowledge of that field. Which means that if I do this, then this is the outcome, or if I act in this way, this is the outcome. So knowledge. When knowledge is there, then there is desire. Because I may have knowledge, but I don't desire to have this goal. I may know so many things, but it doesn't mean I try for everything. I may know how to play chess, but I may not be interested in playing it. So when knowledge is there, then you may desire, you may not desire. Now suppose you got a desire based on the knowledge. Then next thing you have to see is whether you are capable of achieving it. So we will have knowledge, we have desire to be something, but we may not be capable of.
Is that capability is called karma, or the capable or resources which you need to carry out your desire?
Yeah.
Can that be termed as
Karma means action. So action comes afterwards. And once you know that you are capable, then you act.
like a person who cannot sing properly but he wants to glorify the Lord by wanting to sing in his bhajan, but he just,
Then we call it daiva, not karma. Fate.
fate.
Karma is what you do now.
So, okay, so that's what I meant.
So no, that is called daiva.
Okay.
So daiva is also there, part of capability. Because we are all different people and we all have different capabilities. We are born with certain capabilities and certain disabilities. So that we have to ascertain.
But we hear that devotional service does not depend on your
Hmm?
devotional service, do not depend on your faith.
It does not depend on your fate, but you have to perform devotional service with the instrument you have or not. Isn't it?
Yeah.
So then you have to see the type of instrument you have when you do that devotional service, because devotional service is not fixed. It has to be done only in this manner. So you understand your capacity and then you act accordingly. If you want to sing and you don't have a voice, you can also do it in the mind. So when it is said that devotional service does not depend on anything, means that it's not that you cannot do devotional service, but you may not be able to do a particular type of devotional service.
When it comes to performing devotional service, it is an institution. Performing devotional service in the framework of an institution.
Impossible almost.
So there are a lot of features of the institution which we may have to take into
That's what I'm
account.
saying. Once you get into institution, then devotional service becomes curtailed. Because then you have to follow the authority, you have to follow the law, the rule, and that may not be, because institution may have one goal and your goal is devotional service, and there may be a mismatch in that, which is the case most of the time. Institution is that institution is favorable, which is there to facilitate you to do devotional service. But institution is there only for you to act for the sake of institution. Then devotional service is put on the back burner.
So what will those activities you perform in a spiritual institution will be termed as?
They will become what? They will be termed as what?
Yeah.
They will be termed
Despised
as,
activity, or because you are not performing sinful activities as well as
they
close.
will be pious activities. Because as you said, devotional service is not dependent on any of these things, but see, the devotional activity is ultimately the consciousness, and that has to be understood properly, because the main thing on this path of the bhakti is that it is dependent on our awareness, on our consciousness, not just on something physical. I mean, there are activities which you do physically without awareness, which Jiva Goswami calls as Swarup Siddha Bhakti. That no matter whether like chanting of the name, it is devotional service. But ultimately one has to come to the level of awareness. Even by doing it without awareness, you must reach awareness. Because bhakti is awareness. So sadhana bhakti leads to bhav bhakti, right? And bhav means consciousness. So that is the perfection. You have to come to the level of consciousness. And if we are not reaching towards that, then we will keep on dangling here, doing so many things. So, if our goal is to come to awareness, bhav bhakti, then we better start endeavoring for that from the very beginning. And if we are going to do mechanically, then sadhana vairana sangir Alabhya Suchuradapi. Rupa Goswami says that bhakti is very rare, and he gives two reasons. One is sadhana ho gayi. Avha means like a flood. You do flood of sadhanas day and night, anasanga, but not with your heart into it, not with proper consciousness, awareness. Then he says, alabhya, suchiradapi, you can do it for a very long time. Reason is that the very thing you want to get is awareness, and you are avoiding that. And Krishna, Krishna also doesn't give it quickly. So, Didha Syat Sudharlama, that's why it is Sudharlama. Not only rare, very rare.
Discussing about the Apara, he was saying that how the Lord decides He can give His grace upon anybody. Without
Like He gave to Putana who came to kill him.
So, as a sadhana bhakta, or devotees on the path of regular devotional service, what kind of expectation he can maintain in his consciousness? Because on one hand he knows his limitation, and he's not qualified to receive, like what Rupa Goswami says, that it is very rare to get the pure bhakti. At the same time, theoretically he knows that if the Lord decides, I can get His grace. So, can we maintain any kind of such expectation when we perform?
See, the thing is that Goswami has said two things, and he also says later on also that there are two types of siddha, sadhana siddha and kripa siddha. You get perfection by your practice and by grace. So grace is unconditional, causeless. It's not in your hand, there's nothing you can do about it, so forget about it. You do what is within your capacity. So that is your sadhana, but sasanga sadhana, not anasanga.
Sasanga
Means with your complete heart. And awareness, with consciousness. So that we do, and then we leave everything to Him. Because if we can do that, then that itself is enough. Then we are on the right track, and we don't have to worry. Problem is that we are not doing that, and it is a dangerous position. So then we are wasting our time, and time is limited. ठीक है.